Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is one of the most highly anticipated session, and I know you've been waiting for this. So, without further ado, I would just like to build a context about the session and just then bring the two powerful speaker out here. It's a fireside session, which means there'll be debates, there'll be contrarian views, there'll be kind of banters. But more importantly, the topic per se, the theme per se is very relevant. We are talking about reinventing enterprise and workforce transformation, the great upheaval. Let me give a context about this whole session, what we are talking about, and then do a brief introduction about the two powerful speakers, what we have on the fireside. Let me build also a word cloud around here. Just listen to this: exponential technologies, gig economy, new age platform enterprises, disruptive startups, hybrid working, employee well-being, skill accentuation, collective intelligence, swift career shifts. Are you able to resonate to all of these? Now, amidst the savage which has been caused by a pandemic, coupled with the high tide of transformation and disruption, enterprises globally are being tested on their core DNA of staying relevant and on their fundamental essence of business strategies and operating models are going for a toss. Now, there's an imminent need to resurrect the enterprise today. And this is where a new word which has come in, which is what we call resilient enterprise. Now, that's on the one side of the spectrum. On the other side, the corporate workforce, especially the technology professionals and leaders, are witnessing the biggest upheaval of their careers. Now, one aspect is all about what we call the talent acquisition, retention, management, but the other side, on a very personal, professional note, which is not only specific to entry or the mid level, but now we are talking about senior leadership also facing the same conundrum. Time has come to reinvent new strategies for enterprises and professionals. The fireside chat, held by two outstanding and proven leaders, will ponder and cogitate on the most relevant theme of our time. Watch out for intense yet pacey, thought provoking perspective for this session. We've got two powerful speakers: Supriya Dhanda, ex country manager, Western Digital India, and now she's a social entrepreneur. And we've got Pankaj Rai, Group Chief Data and Analytics Officer, Aditya Birla Group. Over to you, Pankaj and Supriya.
Thank you, Samir. Is it audible? Clear?
Yes, very well.
Awesome. Pankaj, I so look forward to this session. And Samir has set up such a big, fire on the stage that we just have to keep it on, I guess. So we don't have to light it, we just have to sustain it. And that is in, context to how do we make sure the enterprises stay relevant. Now, this is, Samir, thank you for the opportunity. We hope to do justice to the big and impactful words that we used. So, Pankaj, we don't need to set a context here. The context is already set. There is a VUCA world. Everything is changing. And if you look at the engineering world, we typically like to have one side of the equation that's stable, and let's predict the other end. But here, when you and I have discussed this, both the sides are up in the air. The coordinates are shifting, call it 3D, 4D, whatever. But there is no view as to how and where these coordinates are going to land. But if you are there in the chat, I'm sure you will know how they are going to land. So there comes my first question to you. In this shifting equation, like I said, both ends, what do you think is going to remain constant? And therefore, the enterprise and the workforce can work with it. But what is importantly going to change? And therefore, what is it that they should reinvent, shift their mindset on, both enterprise and the workforce? Because you and I have a task to discuss both the ends of the balance. And therefore, that's my first question to you.
Thank you, Supriya. And like you said, with that Tharurian introduction that Samir gave about us, it's always hard to live up to that expectation. But anyway, we'll try our best. So I think, one of the thought that I want to bring forward is that, how I think this VUCA world needs a different reaction from all of us is that given that, and I think I can say that you and I both probably lived in an era which was a scarcity era, which had limited choices. And now we are, in the era where there's abundance. So one fundamental shift that I think all of us need to make is that the mental model and the way we thought about things in that previous world and this one need to be different, because the scarcity has become abundance. Now, the scarcity world had, few things going. There were trends. So you could look outside, look at those trends. You can make a career based on whether engineer or doctor, or make a career out of, 2 or 3 paths that were available and all of that. So it was easy to look outside and find your answer. I think when the world becomes abundant, then I believe you need to look inside to find the answer and not outside. I don't think we have still realized that. I think we are still using the older mental model of looking outside, following trends and all that, and of course getting confused. Because the world of abundance, and my favorite two analogies of that, which all of us can relate to, is that news and food are the two things that we consume, one for the mind, one for the tummy. Both of them were scarce, and we would just grab them and have them whenever we got them. And today they're all over. And if we did the same thing, we will be obese and mad, and clearly none of us want to be that, and therefore we need to choose on what is relevant, both from a food and news perspective. Also, it has to look inward. Okay, what do you really need? When do you need food? Have it then. News, figure out when you need it, what you need it, and all of that. And in my situation, I have become gone to the other side, which is to say, by default I don't need any of that. So I don't read the newspaper, I don't read TV, I don't read. I think when I need it, I'll go figure out, because I know it's out there. I'll find it. Same for food. I know it's in the fridge. I need it, I'll go get it. So I do think that at a higher level, I would say that the way of thinking about it has to change fundamentally at a higher level, to look inward, figure out where you are. And I mean, look at about your career. I mean, if you think that you can do something, you can, because there is opportunity to be able to do what you are good at or what you like it. So think that ikigai chart and all of those types of things that people make, I think I would say that every individual today has an opportunity to monetize whatever they are good at. I mean, I'll make that statement. And I think it's for us to be creative to figure out how to make that happen. And that's what I meant, that the this new abundant world requires us to look at things in a fundamentally different way of saying, what am I good at? And now let me figure out how do I change the world, and so on, which was just impossible in the past, Supriya. So I'll kind of
Awesome.
start with that, and maybe let you sort of build on that, because I know you are taking a sort of an inflection point in your career. I'm sure you went through a thought process of figuring out what you want to do next. So maybe we can also learn from your own lesson on how you took that decision.
So, Pankaj, to sum up in how I hear you say it is the famous book, right? The Monk Who Sold the Ferrari. From hearing you speak is the monk who started using data. So that's how it lands on me, and do it internally. Great question, and a flow back to me that you shared, that how did I do it? Well, I kind of, I'm on my journey from a capitalist to a socialist world. And I think, like you say, the corporate and the workforce need to balance. I think all of us need to balance. So, some of us can live on the capitalist end of the economy all the time. But I think if you look at the world today, it is figuring out. Like I say, it takes two to tango. There's enough conversation on how corporate is transforming, strategies needed. And I think the mental models have to change. The sheer openness of newness has to come in. And I love the way the previous panel spoke about, it's a combination of strategy, but it's also a combination of who implements the strategies. It's a resource-based view. It's the resources who are going to do it. So your resources are awakened now. They have a heightened sense of awareness. They want to work for organizations that are social, that are flexible, adaptable. So I think at some point, the curve has to meet, and my sense is it's not yet met, but that conversation is going to go on. Personally, for me, the curve met in my mind, Pankaj, and to the viewers there, I went through a 24-year career where I thought, it's great. And why do you work? Work is a means to kind of provide for your family, for yourself. And I think once roti kapda makan, once those basic needs of Maslow were done, it was the actual fulfillment needs that came up. And I think that's the time when I thought, first 46 years living for myself, and next hopefully 5, 10, 15, whatever God has in destiny, is going to be to live for others. So I think I'm at a stage where I'm balancing and I'm exploring the world. So Pankaj, for me, that's how it worked. And I think I'm a data point in the trend of, be it call it US or India, wherever you call it the great resignation or the grand shuffle, which brings me to my next question for you. And then I'll pause and I will let you ask the questions. There is so much conversation on the great resignation in the US and how that's kind of stabilizing, but not yet. And we will see where that lands. It's in millions. And there is this recent report by LinkedIn, recently about a day or 2, 3 day old, when they said 82% of people are going to change jobs. 82% are going to change jobs within 2022, and most of them are early career professionals. And what was interesting was what they want to work for organizations where there's more pay. Well, that's a no-brainer. I would love to get my pay more. There is a better career choice. There is more involvement in the purpose of the organization. And more importantly, that we've all experienced, is flexibility. What's your response to that? What do you think is your comment on the LinkedIn survey, and how are you experiencing your workforce?
Absolutely. And I think I go back to my favorite, one of the favorite TEDx talk by Simon Sinek, and I'm sure several people here would have seen it, that golden circle where he draws three circles of what, how, and why, and what is really what you do, and why is why you do it, and so on. So I think this pandemic has laid open the fact that, when you are sort of disconnected from everyone, somehow you just focus on the what. And after a while, for the lack of that how and why, you start feeling some kind of an emptiness. And I think that's what has happened, and that's what has exposed people to say that we all need a slightly more deeper purpose. While we can go with the what for a while because there's a momentum going on, but I think for us to sustain, that fuel of the why has probably been missing, because I think both, I think the employers and the organizations did not require to create elaborate mechanisms to create the why, because you were in the office, many things were observed, you could see people, you could absorb it. And now that is all missing. So you had to, as an organization and as a leader, you had to create those mechanisms to let people connect to a larger purpose than the work. And similarly, I don't think the employees on their own were capable to find that meaning on their own if not given to them by the environment. So I would think that both sides have probably missed that finding meaning. And hopefully now that this whole great resignation is a trigger, I think both are probably working on it to find meaning. And I think it takes both to tango, because I don't think an organization can also create purpose for everyone. I think they can give guidance, they can give ideas, and we also need to figure out which part of that purpose can we relate to, can we contribute to, what do we resonate with, and so on and so forth. So I think both have to be a bit more creative and find some meaning, a common ground where together we can go far.
Awesome. Awesome.
So I think the other question that comes to my mind is, and I think these days a lot of people, at least people that I know, are looking at this capitalist to socialist transition, if I can say so, saying I have done that. So I think the question in my mind is, why is this whole capitalist thing being looked down upon? And this is more something that I ponder, saying that why should we think that this thing is bad, and now I think more to something more genuine. Why can't that capitalist world also sustain forever? Because I know a lot of people, I know you mentioned that, a lot of other friends of mine say, hey, at one stage, I'll stop working for money and I'll do something that I want. And I said, why can't you do both? And why can't organizations create opportunities for people to do both? Why do you have to retire at all? Should work be such a drudgery that you need to be paid for it? So I don't know. I'm just thinking that those are the questions that I ponder with. I would say that probably either I'm ignorant or lucky to always have felt that whatever I'm doing, it's not just for the money. There's a much more, many other thing that I, either contribute or get out of it. And those type of thoughts haven't crossed my mind yet. But love to hear your perspective on that.
I like the word, Pankaj. The moot word here is yet. They haven't crossed your mind yet. But I wouldn't bet on a public platform, but I would say, we'll wait and watch for a few years. I'm fairly positive it will cross, the yet will come. But I think for all our audience out there, take a moment and think about what Pankaj has asked us. Just think about it, because this is our moment. We are sitting here plugged into our laptops, our devices, our machines to say, is there a difference? In a capitalist world, the question I'll flow back to you is, can we pursue our socialist goals? Now, I'm also a student of PhD right now, and I can tell you as much as, and I'll pull in something from theory, but I'll keep it simple. It very simply says that the capitalist role is to maximize profits. Now, if you want to maximize profit, how can social welfare be there? But again, social welfare can be there if you look at GDP and everybody's working, everybody's, resources are being fully utilized. Of course, everybody works, and then, there's great optimization and GDP goes up. Of course, there can be a social welfare. Okay, I hear a big nod. So my point is, Pankaj, that if organizations, I'll pivot it back to organizations, if organizations can provide more meaning, can give an answer why, if I'm making a technology or a storage product, how that is keeping the world on and powered on, and therefore I am critical to the purpose. It was said long back, but if my job can be directly related or indirectly, but I know I can be shared that in a very clear one sentence, that if I am working 9 to 9, or today there are no 9 to 5 jobs, but if I do that, that is how my company is increasing its value. Like we said, when Irina was closing the session, she asked one word, and value creator stayed with me. Of course, empathy stayed with me and others, but value creator. How am I creating value? I'll tell you why. I'm taking time away from my family. I'm taking time away from my health. I'm taking time away from my daily morning walks. I'm plugged in morning, night. Well, make me productive. More than that, make me useful. The transition from productive to useful, from optimized resource to a very valuable part of a life cycle to critical to company. I think once those meanings and purposeful conversations the enterprise starts having with employee, maybe people like us or some of the others don't have to quit. But I think we need a model where capitalism meets socialism. Till such time the model gets discovered in a large scale enterprise model, my sense is social enterprises are going to be here because they are for profit, just that they are invested in social development. So
No,
I
no,
don't know
you're
if that I
absolutely right.
answered.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. No, no, you're right. I think the
You
whole.
agree? You're on my side now, Pankaj? Come
Yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah. No, but the thing that I see now is that whole Milton Friedman model of shareholder comes first and all of that is being challenged anyway, and people are talking
Yep.
about triple bottom line, ESG investing, all of that. So I do see some light where the corporates are saying that you don't do CSR at the end of doing all the wrongs, but you should be doing the right thing from the beginning, and it will be a journey. I don't think it'll happen tomorrow, but I do think that's a positive trend that we are seeing,
Absolutely.
today, and hopefully some of these trends will allow many more people to quote unquote remain capitalist for longer than they have been in the past. I think I have been more on the enabling function side, not so much on the sales revenue side. So maybe I've been a not a true capitalist for a long while, and maybe not face some of those headwinds that many people who need to bring revenue face, and been lucky to sort of remain on
I
the.
like that. The subtle remover of the capitalist hat and a slowly, placement of the socialist. I like that. Pankaj, quick question that comes to mind. Again, this is back to our session and objective. If you think right now, think what do leaders want? And these are the last two quick rapid fire. What do you think right now leaders want? And in the technology and a professional world, largely technology domain, what are they struggling with and what do they really want right now?
Right. I think they are probably struggling with that whole finding the meaning to make their people more creative. I think they are able to get the people's, as Jacobus famously said, their arms and legs, but not their head. And I think
Awesome.
that's where the differentiation is likely to happen.
Brilliant. And what do you think employees want? Leaders
See,
are employees too, but the large workforce, what do
I,
they want?
I also think that they probably want the same thing, and they need help in figuring that out. So I do think that both sides probably want the same thing, because employees also would love to come to office, feel good about it, make a contribution, make a difference, and make money, and not just make money. So I do think that while they are not saying it in the same way, they both probably mean need the same thing. And I'm quite optimistic that we'll find that.
If I can disagree with you, and I'll leave it for you to sum up, but I think you said employees may need help and leaders, this is on their mind. Somehow, like I said, you and I are supposed to disagree, aren't we? I think employees have figured it out. It's the leaders who need the help. And audience, kill me if you want, for all for all I care. But I think it's important because they need help, because they have to take themselves along and the people along. Because I think the younger generation is figuring it out much faster and more flexible and nimble way than perhaps I figured it out. So it's taken me 24 years, but I think somebody's figured it out in 24 months. Pankaj, over to you. I think we will have a time check. We want to be mindful of other sessions, but over to you to sum
Thank
up.
you, Supriya. I think the best way that I can summarize is that we need to go away from the bilateral type of argument that we have, that of black or white. I think we need to all believe in that 50 shades of gray, not literally. That each of us will have to find a new meaning, and the opportunity for each of us to find that new meaning is also existing. So I think what I would say that you and I may be at sort of two different ends of the spectrum, but which is great because people can choose anything in between, and they have so many more choices now than they probably had in the past. So I'll leave it on an optimistic note that there are so many ways in which you can pursue your life and career, and there are far more opportunities today than we had yesterday. And I think it's for us to make that step, and I'm sure there are other people who are going to help you get there. So that's how I would summarize it, Supriya. Any last thoughts from my end? Because I think Big Brother is watching us.
Yeah, Big Brother is watching, and I'll just say, look inward is the motto. It's always great to benchmark external, but look inward and find a purpose. And then, of course, find an organization that aligns with it. But that's going to be as much as your responsibility, as much as the organization's responsibility. So control your destiny, or someone else will control your destiny, or corporate will, is how we would like to end it. Pankaj, thank you so much. Samir, back to you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, both of you. In fact, looks like both of you are planning a biopic. It's just a question of who wants to direct and who wants to charge a royalty, actually. And Supriya termed it rightly. I mean, the biopic could be called The Monk Who Sold His Data, actually. And Pankaj, by all means, do not compare me with Shashi Tharoor, pun intended. But I think this is where it comes out. I think what we were discussing about, I think both of you are accomplished professionals, and there are upheavals both of you have witnessed in your professional journey, because this is what we are talking about as part of the audience takeaway. And it's never a linear path, it's always kind of uh, I would say, fraught with the gyrations. And this whole aspect about what's happened in the last 2 years has been unprecedented. And how do professionals, irrespective of the stage of the careers, what they are, how do enterprises who've been laggards in terms of adopting this acceleration of new age exponential technology should pivot, and these pivots are not something which needs to be tried and tested. It needs to be radical. And that's what came out, kind of a thing that both of you also have taken pivots in your careers. Both of you have had introspection in terms of where it's going. And it's not just about kind of saying, okay, I'm doing what I'm doing, and this is how I will actually move out when I actually reach 55, 60. But it's about taking those bold, audacious calls, and also then rallying around and saying, look, my intent of the life, my ikigai, as we call it, is something, and I would stand by that. And this actually came out very, very nicely by both of you. Thank you so much. The whole intent of this fireside session is accomplished because we wanted a freewheeling, unbiased, unfiltered, candid conversation. And knowing Pankaj and knowing you, Supriya, a bit came out absolutely fine. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Console, over to you, please.